Thank you everyone for joining us today. This is our September Town Hall update. We're going to be taking you through what's been going on. We're going to back up all the way to the vote and give you some updates from then. So if you've been hearing some of the town halls that have been taking place between now and the vote, there might be some repeat information, but we're going to get some great updates from some of the integration teams that are doing some great work out there for the new association. So just a couple housekeeping items. Everyone is coming in muted, so I think we're in good shape, but any of the presenters, if you have your cell phones on ringer, if you want to mute those so it doesn't jump up in the background. As far as question and answer, we're not going to take live questions today. We're going to be doing them through the question and answer window. So if you look on your Zoom meetings, there is a question and answer tab, not the chat tab, but the question and answer tab. That way, when we get to it, Tim is going to facilitate getting all of your questions answered as best we can. And last, the town hall is going to be recorded, so this will be available in a day or two on both the NACE and SSPC websites. All right, so the things that we're going to cover today is we're going to make some introductions to some of the presenters today, recap some information that we've covered since the vote. We're going to talk a little bit about the transition structure and how that works. We're going to get some updates from several of the integration teams. And then finally at the end, we're going to be answering some questions. I see we already have 2 posted in the question and answer period. We will get to those at the end. So thank you for your patience. All right, we'll start with the transition team. For those of you who don't know, the transition team is a group of board members from both NACE and SSPC, as well as staff that was appointed by each one of the boards shortly after the vote. And the idea with this group is that during the transition process, while we were phasing out the 2 existing organizations, NACE and SSPC, and we're ramping up the new organization, that we needed a group to basically be making all the decisions during that time period, because effectively when those organizations are wound down, the boards legally aren't still functioning. So that's what this group is charged to do. And then beginning January of 2021, the new boards will be in place and they will be running the new organization moving forward. So the people that you see here on this slide in red are all representatives of SSPC. The individuals that you see in green are representative of NACE, and the ones in black are staff. Anyone with a star next to their name or an asterisk means that they're part of the steering committee, and that's the group that helps the transition team, or it really helps the integration team stay on track, keep them doing what they need to be doing so that the information that's being presented to the larger group, the transition team, is good information and a good use of their time when we meet every 2 weeks. So a bit of a recap. This all started back in 2018, where leaders from NACE and SSPC were just starting to talk about, how could we possibly do this? We've explored this in the past. It didn't work. How can we make it work this time? Does it all make sense? Fast forward to 2019, there were task groups formed on both NACE and SSPC side to try to come together. And we had many meetings, some in person, some video calls, where we were discussing all kinds of things about how we could make it happen, updating our boards as the process moved on. In 2019, we also hired a consulting firm called McKinley Associates. McKinley helped us facilitate what we needed to accomplish so that we could ultimately bring this proposal or this idea to a vote. And that happened in the first half of 2020. Both associations were very accepting of the idea. In fact, we got tremendous participation on both sides and about a 90% approval rating. So about 9 out of 10 people approximately felt as though that this was a great idea. So since then, what's been taking place is the transition team has been put into effect, and the transition team is created integration teams, approximately 13 integration teams, and they are working on all kinds of different things: branding, legal, and then each one of the program areas that the association has identified, that we have teams working on trying to bring programs together. And examples of those would be things like education or certifications or chapters and sections. So those are the groups that we're going to hear from today. And where we're going with this is these teams are meeting on a regular basis, and by really the end of 2020, so the November, December timeframe, we're looking to have presentations from each one of these integration teams for the transition team. So the transition team can decide, yep, this makes sense, pass the information along to the new boards in January, and really get the association up and running quickly. So some of the things which I've already discussed during the timeline. McKinley Advisors, what I didn't say is McKinley was contracted through the vote originally, and they did a fantastic job for us, so much so that we decided to engage them again through this transition process. So we have a new contract with them to bring us all the way up to and even past January to get everything up and running for this new organization. We talked about the transition team already. One of the other things that we've done since the vote is we named Bob Chalker the CEO for the new organization. We identified those 13 teams that we talked about. Now those teams are made up of both NACE and SSPC members, as well as staff from both organizations. The branding team is one of the teams probably the first team we kicked off. They have been working diligently and doing a fantastic job. They brought on a consultant called Beyond Definition. Beyond Definition is working with them to manage our branding development process. So right now they've been taking us through, all different things. They've been doing interviews, coming up with, ways where we could position this organization the best way possible. And what their next charge is, and hopefully we're going to have some information to present to you all by the next town hall meeting, would be the name of the new organization. We're getting a little bit tired of using New Org all the time, so it'll be exciting to have a new name to present to you all. And as far as the integration teams are concerned, they've been meeting on a regular basis, and they are currently working on developing recommendations at this point. So we're going to talk a little bit about the structure of how this is all set up. So overall, we have the transition team, which we name the individuals. They sit at the top of the list here because they're ultimately making all of the final decisions and the final, recommendations and how to move forward based on input from, the other teams below them. So the steering team, which we identified early on, that team is helping shape the direction. That team meets every week, whereas the transition team meets every 2 weeks to get together and determine what are the next steps, where we can move. And the steering team is really set up to keep the transition team on task and working as efficiently as possible. The integration staff team is more on the staff side, so they're working with the staffs of both organizations to make sure that everyone is working together properly, that they're knowing what to do moving forward, especially during this transition period, because it's definitely a struggle for staff, being as though they have to do their regular jobs all day long, plus they have to do all the work associated with merging these organizations and supporting the member teams. So it is definitely a lot of work, and staff has been doing a great job so far. Last, the integration teams. So the integration teams are set up to first go out and research, what's out there in the two organizations. So if you have a strong understanding of NACE's way of doing like standards, let's say, but you're not familiar with SSPCs, that those integration teams are getting familiar with both sides, NACE and SSPC's ways of doing things, and then they're going out to the industry and find out how other trade associations or other organizations are managing those processes as well. So what we're looking to do is not just bring in the NACE way or bring in the SSPC way, but bring in the best way from industry on how we can move forward with the way we do things and the way we take care of our members and the industry. So we mentioned that the steering team meets weekly, transition team bi-weekly, and then the integration teams have their own schedules. So many of the integration teams meet, approximately every 2 weeks as a full group, I would say, for the most part. But they have now divided up workload, and smaller teams are meeting on a more frequent basis. And what McKinley in this process, since they're facilitating all of this, they're applying our project management principles to all this to make sure that we all stay on track, to make sure everything is clear and organized, and that we could share it appropriately. So these are some of the integration teams, not all. We're going to be hearing from the ones that you see highlighted on this particular slide, but these are the teams I think that there's the most interest generated from the membership on what's happening in these areas. So we're going to continue to update you during these town halls on some of the progress with the other teams, but we're going to start today, since we have limited time, with just these three. And we're going to hear from individuals on each one of those teams to talk about what they're accomplishing. So certifications is an individual certification as opposed to an accreditation, which would be for a company. So we're going to hear from the certification team, chapters and sections, and education. So the process to which these integration teams should be operating, started off with, just some immersion meetings. So really getting to know each other. It was an opportunity for the steering team to be able to present to them what process we wanted followed, how they were going to put together their ultimate reports to the transition team, so the transition team can feel comfortable with the work that they've done and make those recommendations, ultimately to continue in those processes for the new boards to follow. What most of the integration teams are doing right now is in red. It's the data collection, sort of the research. So they're out there collecting information from both sides, understanding how the current processes work, and also going out to industry to see what else is out there and available, and starting to talk about what they like about what they've seen out there. So some of the teams have moved actually on to the next one, which is making decisions. So they're starting to make decisions on different aspects of each one of these things, so that they could form a complete set of recommendations ultimately to the transition team, which is going to be in the November-December timeframe, where they're putting things together for the transition team's review and ultimate acceptance by the transition team. So now we're going to hear from some of our integration team members. So we're going to start with the certifications team, and Bob, why don't you take it away?
Good morning, everybody. Bob Cloutier here. I represent the SSPC Board of Governors. I'm actually representing the certification team here. And we're working hard to develop recommendations for review and approval by the transition team as we go forward. We do meet every other week, and we've had some very positive results from both sides and everybody involved. So next slide, please. So our first goal was really to look at both organizations' certification programs, looking at the strengths, weaknesses, the opportunities and threats, right? So we did a SWOT analysis, right, and compared the pros and cons, and seeing what is actually involved with both of those, so that we can make sure that we're representing the members well, and they maintain their level of certifications they currently have. We're working through that through a work stream analysis at this point, and it's in progress, making sure that for all certifications, whether it's for the craft workers, the inspectors, or the protective coating specialists, that they all maintain certification. So we're consolidating, and we're going to propose some recommendations to the transition team here by the end of the year on a plan moving forward, so that everybody can maintain their certifications. And that's about it, Sam.
Fantastic, Bob. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to hear from Terry Greenfield on education.
There, I actually remembered to unmute myself. That's rare. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. Education, we really recognize this is one of the, big elements of both former organizations, and we've recognized this is a great opportunity to really stop, look and listen, right, to see what we have in the portfolios from both organizations, you know, with the resources, the material, but to also step out and look into industry and really make sure that our educational offerings are on target and on point, and then see what maybe there's other opportunities within other industries that we can address as we're reshaping the programs. So that's the purpose. Okay. Next slide. You know, we looked at kind of, obviously it's a huge portfolio from the, you know, the combined from the two former organizations. And we see to address that, we've kind of hit phase one, which we see are the things that are the courses that are probably more important, relevant to the industry at whole right now, and certainly on a lot of people's minds and how they're going to go forward. And obviously that's, you know, coating inspection, cathodic protection, concrete surface preparation, general coatings, and then the coating applicator. You know, one of the things too, we've really, one of the good questions we had from the previous town hall that I'll kind of address right now was looking at, they asked about professional tracks for engineering type. We've really tried to look within the portfolio as well, and as we're addressing all this and really making it clear what different tracks would be from the craft worker through the professional. So again, you know, we really view this as a great opportunity to make sure that we're where we want to be on the education side. Phase two would include corrosion management, safety, general corrosion issues, insulation, wastewater, and mining, just as a few to be named. So where we're at right now as far as in progress is really looking at a lot of the task analysis on what is being performed and what, you know, the functions of, you know, what's required for the professionals and craft workers to really perform their job, and obviously the tasks and what skills needed to be provided throughout the education. Obviously, as those are completed, we'll run through the review process, analysis, and then really look deep into what we have, you know, the various resources and information in the different buckets or strands, whatever the terminology you may like to use as far as the different courses. You know, there's an amazing amount of information that we've got. So again, you know, we see this as just sometimes a once in a lifetime opportunity as we reset with the new organization in the education programs to make sure we're best addressing not only the individuals that are going to be taking the courses that lead to certification in many cases, but also to make sure that we're providing the industry the best qualified people through that education. Okay, and at the very end, again, it all goes to the integration team for approval within the process and how we're going forward. Thank you, Sam. And I'll introduce, I'm not sure who's coming next, whether it's Jane or Amir. So Amir, okay. So I'll let you take the introduction, Sam. How about that?
No problem. Thank you, Terry. Great job. So chapters and sections, Amir, why don't you take it away?
Hi, good day, everybody. Everyone in his time zone. So actually, once you look at the chapter and section, so basically we see assets. The assets here are people, and the people are basically the one who are part of either the chapters or the sections. So this is a very important consideration, and we have an integrated team, of course, with members from both NACE and SSPC. Most important thing that even after the first meeting and in between the first meeting, there was no difference. We were all talking new org because people understand that new org wants to create something which is stronger than both associations. So what's written on the previous slide was the idea of having chapter section and establishing communities, both geographic and topical, for new org stakeholders. And this is the meaning that today, actually, we are one world. especially now under COVID. We understand that geographical is not a border because this is a one world border. And once we are one world, of course, we do have the existing chapter sections as they are, but this is also an opportunity to develop new ideas and to look at us as a community. So we have completed the inventory of all the existing chapter sections conducted by the staff. We've done a SWOT analysis, and most important thing that during the SWOT analysis, because you see we do have members from both organizations, we have staff for both organizations, and we have also the McKinsey that was mentioned before. But the nice thing about this process is that everybody shared their full SWOT with the full transparency in order to create something stronger. We've done all the research, the best practices. We have a roadmap, and the discussions are creative. And most important thing, since I also get questions from because being also chair of ACC at NACE, so I get questions. And most important thing that we do care a lot about sections and chapters. And so in progress, we're still continuing the process, and we have our biweekly teams, and actually it's a very interesting process as new ideas are becoming into close to reality. And we do have still 8 more conference calls, and we're always building up on the feedback, approval. We have homework, so it's a very active status. And to conclude, I can also say that one of the nice thing that we could have a way that today, because today we have also thousands of members which they do not belong to a specific chapter or section, but could be a way that members will be more active in the future, and we will build even more or increase the leadership. So at the end, this is a very optimistic integration team, and great work and integration between staff, members, and McKinley. Thank you.
Here, thank you very much. What I'd like to say about each one of the integration teams is how impressed I am about how well they are working together. This is not an easy process because some of these people have been involved in what they've been doing for years and years. And, the two associations, let's be frank, have been competing against each other in certain areas. And, it's hard to let go of what you've been doing for a while. So I'm really impressed with the work of these individuals that are coming together on these communities to do, or on these integration teams to do such a great job. So with some of the things that we're looking to present to you guys in the future and future town hall meetings. First, from the branding team, which will be really exciting. Finally, a new name for new work. So the transition team is hoping to hear from the branding team and Beyond Definition shortly on what the options are for new name for the new association. And we're excited to make that decision and ultimately be able to present that to all the members. We're going to continue with the integration teams doing their research and reporting progress to the transition team, and during these town hall meetings, reporting back to you all. The legal team right now has put together a proposal to the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, and they are waiting for a response. We expect to hear back from them this month that there are no objections to the combination of the two organizations. Once that takes place, then there are no more roadblocks to making sure that we can bring this association together, these two associations together into one. We don't anticipate any problems, but you never know. They might have some suggestions for us on how to make some minor modifications to make it work for moving forward. The legal team is also, once we get that approval, they're going to define what is required to wind down or close each one of the existing entities and spin up the new entities so that we're ready and operational in the beginning of 2021. So town halls are scheduled through December. We're going to show a list on the next slide of when they are. You'll get updates on when those town hall meetings are taking place via social media platforms, direct email from, whatever association you're currently a member with. And you can always go on to our dedicated web pages, which are listed below, for any more information. And if you want to see recordings of any of the town halls, all the way back to the beginning of town halls, you can go onto those websites and you can see whatever you'd like. We're also, interested in getting questions from people, recommendations. So feel free to do so in the question and answer window, or send emails to the association. In the lower right corner of this slide, you'll see some email addresses. But these are our upcoming town halls where we're going to be presenting some more information to you all. Feel free to read the QR code on this slide. This is going to stay up for the rest of the presentation. And with that, I will turn things over to Tim, and Tim is going to facilitate getting all of your questions answered. So please feel free to ask. Tim?
Hi, Sam. Thanks. Good morning, good afternoon, folks that are joining online. We've got, looks like a total of 50 folks that are attending today. Got a few questions that are in the Q&A panel. Some we've been able to type responses to, but others we thought we would just take live. I think the first two questions are related, and I'm going to ask Bob to comment on the licensee question. So in the new org, what do we envision the role of existing NACE or SSPC licensees? And it might be useful just to understand what licensees mean.
Yeah, I will do that. So, and licensees is one term that you may hear partner, or sometimes the term distributor. In short, what it is, that are typically companies, but sometimes individuals that either NACE or SSPC have partnered with to help in the delivery of our education programs. And we have a network around the world that particularly help us in, to reach our entire audience and offer classes. I don't know the number for SSPC, but NACE offers classes in almost 40 countries. And much of that is done through these partners. First of all, we value our partners greatly. They help us make a huge impact by being able to have these courses around the world. And so we will be embracing them. At this point, we have not started the process or to start to look at what we're going to do or how we'll approach it. In parts of the world where there's no overlap, where NACE and SSPC aren't both offering courses, which is a big part of the world, I don't see any change coming in the short term. In those areas where we may both currently be offering programs, we'll be working closely with the partners to find an arrangement that is beneficial to everybody and works for the new organization. But we're probably several months from really digging into that and understanding it. The first step is what the Ad Hoc Committee on Education is doing, is what education programs will we have and how will those be merged together. So for now, we are going to continue to operate as we always have. We are finding some places where it makes sense to partner early, and we've done that, and it's been very, very successful. So we expect that there'll continue to be a spirit of cooperation and working together to better serve the members, or best serve the members and our customers and our students through the process. But for now, both organizations are going to continue to offer their courses through their existing network.
Thanks, Bob. Next one in the Q&A is more of a comment. I'm going to skip past that for the moment. Maybe we'll come back to it. Ricardo asked, what are the main benefits that a NACE member or certified professional can gain with the merging of NACE and SSPC? It's a great question, Ricardo. I'll start out with my take on the answer, and we can certainly bring in some other folks from the transition team if they want to add additional comments. Sam or Terry or Kevin, Amir, whatever, feel free to chip in. But, you know, when we proposed this framework to the two boards that govern the different organizations, as well as the membership vote, we tried to frame it in terms of the net value or net impact that it would have for our membership and for industry. One area is simplification, right? We have, in some cases, standards that overlap or standards that compete. We have certification schemes that compete, education classes that compete. So the idea is that we could bring some of that together and have a strand in those areas that would not be competing with each other, but leveraging the best of both of the organizations together. Another area is just having one bigger voice, you know, having a voice that has 45,000 combined members will be stronger than the individual voices of the two organizations separately. So whether you're trying to advocate with different asset owner groups or with the governments around the world where we operate, there's a benefit to having one stronger voice. Sam, I don't know if you have something maybe you.
Sure, I'd like to add. I mean, the one that I see is one of the most beneficial is all the networking opportunities. One of the strengths of NACE is it has a tremendous amount of owner involvement or asset owner involvement in the association, where SSPC has a tremendous amount of contractor involvement. These two groups generally bring together a great group of vendors to support both contractors and owners and what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that the ability to bring everyone together into one great association and also come up with opportunities where they can share information in a better and more efficient way is to me one of the most exciting opportunities. Terry, do you have any more to add?
You know, I think you guys have covered it pretty well, but I guess, you know, some of the things as far as we present ourselves to industry, especially in the certification and education leading the certification in that aspect, we just have a much more clear vision that we provide to industry of what they can expect from the certified individuals that are going to perform the work. So again, from the days of competing, now, you know, again, it's a strong, concise voice that we're able to provide. And I just think it's going to work out very well, that there's a lot better understanding from the users of the certification as far as what the industry expects and what they're going to know that they can rely on us as a new organization to provide those individuals. And I want to take this opportunity to jump in too. I slighted, I'm glad you said something, because during the two staff organizations have just been phenomenal and exceptional in working together on the education side. And it's just been a real pleasure to work with them. So my apologies for not hitting that sooner, but Sam, thanks for covering that.
Sam, this is Bill. I think one other point with the combination that we need to consider too is the global relevance, right? By combining these two organizations now, you have a much greater relevance on a global basis, competing against some of the other big global international entities out there that are doing standards and that. So the combination of both NACE and SSPC, I think will, you know, take that into account and put us in a better position.
Great, thanks all. Hopefully, Ricardo, that addresses your question. Next question is the new org formation. Is it limited to US/Canada or North America, or is it global? The answer is it's global. We'll be going through all of the entities that make up the two organizations and updating them accordingly. The NACE has offices in several different areas around the globe, in the UK, in the Middle East, in Malaysia. All of those will be transitioned under the new organization. So all of the membership, the existing members and new members that come in will be part of the new organization. I guess I'd kick this next question about certifications to either or both Robert Cloutier or Kevin Garrity. So is it reasonable to assume changes in certifications will take more effort and it won't be clear until some point in the future, suggested date of mid-2022, but Robert, Kevin, be interested in your thoughts.
There is a tremendous amount of passion, if you call it, trying to understand everybody's level of certifications, whether it be the coding inspectors or the protective coding specialist. So a lot of thought is going into that and making sure that everybody is recognized for what they've done and to make sure we recognize their certifications as time goes on. Kevin, I don't know if you want to add anything from that, or?
Yeah, Bob, thanks. The only thing that I'd like to add is that, you know, the team has the recognition of existing regulatory language, contract specifications, and those kinds of things that reference the individual certifications for both SSPC and NACE International. So there will need to be a transition time to ensure that we're not leaving anybody out as we move forward. But the key thing is that our goal is to ensure that the value of existing certifications will not be diminished in any way, shape, or form, and therefore will not have any kind of a detrimental impact on individual career path or job functions or standing across the industry. There are obviously similarities, and there'll be a blending of those similarities. There'll be, I think, you know, we don't know with specificity, but there'll be certain cross endorsements on existing certifications to recognize the value of each of the certification programs. I don't know if it will take as long as 2022, but as Bob mentioned, the team has made excellent progress. We're on track to deliver our recommendations to the transition team. And I would expect that at the end of the day, the combination of the two programs is going to be stronger than either one of them individually.
Thanks, Kevin and Bob.
Thanks.
Question around standards. Will the standards be updated to the new name? You know, for example, NACE 1/SSPC SP11. Will that come in as new org number XXX? Kingsley, there, just like there is a certification team, integration team that we just heard from, there's a standards integration team. They're working those very issues. You know, in addition to how do we ensure that the standards development process that the new organization uses maintains its ANSI accreditation as a standards development organization, something that's very important as we go forward. We recognize that both standards that are individual or co-branded can be currently referenced in company documents, can be referenced in perhaps regulatory frameworks. So we really want to be thoughtful about how we do this. I think over time, it's probably likely that these will come together, but I think that time frame will be probably rather long so that we don't have a lot of confusion and create a lot of work inside of our industry partners to have to go and update a name. They all have update cycles for their various documentation. So it's something that I think we'll be aiming for, but I don't think it will be very fast in terms of when that will happen. So keep referring to the same standards for now, I guess, is the short answer. Are we including members from outside of America, for example, Asia, in the integration teams? Yes, actually, we just heard from Amir. Amir sits as part of the European area inside of NACE. We have other international members that are on the various sub-teams to ensure that we're getting the beyond North America view of how these programs should come together. We also have individuals that maybe are based in North America but work for international organizations and also bring a view of how outside of North America is impacted or how business is done. I don't know, Sam, if you had anything to add in that space as well, or anyone else on the panelist.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to, share that we're taking the fact that we are going to be a global organization moving forward very seriously. And not only is it the integration teams that we're concerned about making sure we have international representation on, but also, there's a governance team that's looking at, what are the boards going to look like? What are the nomination teams going to look like? How is the organization going to be structured, and how can we make sure that we do that so we get a good representation of all of our members? So it's not just on the integration teams where we're concerned about that international representation, we're concerned about it, across the entire organization. In fact, we're going to have an advisory committee just dedicated to nothing but global affairs. So what we can do to make sure that we're all figuring out how we can, work together in the best way in a global environment.
I would like to add that actually, I didn't mention it, that actually also COVID put the international as no borders, and it seems to be at least that both organizations will even be more international compared to each one before individually. And we do have international members, and it's always a part of the discussion, how to get people from every place in the world, how to get them involved. So just to add this.
Yeah, thanks, Amir. Just like corrosion doesn't know any borders, neither should our organization. I was gonna pivot just a minute to a question that we had in this town hall earlier in the week, because I thought it was an important question. There was a question about what will events, conferences and events look like in the future? Will it just be one giant merged event? And I guess, Bob, I'd like to get your thoughts on where we see the conferences and events going.
Thanks, Tim. Yes, we do definitely see that we will merge the main conferences of both organizations, the SSPC Coatings Plus Conference and the NACE Corrosion Conference. Traditionally, Coatings Plus is held in February, and Corrosion is held in the March, early April timeframe. And it makes a lot of sense that we would combine those into one event. For 2021, they will be separate events, and I'll talk why in a minute. We are targeting for 2022 that we would have a combined event. The real challenge with bringing those two large events together is that as part of the planning process, we make agreements and arrangements and contractual commitments with convention centers and hotels and cities years in advance. And so it really has taken a very diligent effort on the part of the staff of both organizations to negotiate with these cities of sort of a rearrangement to allow us to move from two events to one event, even though it'll be a larger event. That's going extremely well, actually better than we thought. We really felt, or as we were doing the planning for the merger, felt that it could be several years before we would be able to bring the two together. For example, at NACE, we have commitments with these convention centers and cities reaching out 6-8 years in advance. You have to do it that early in order to secure the best dates and the best facilities. So it was going to be tricky. This is one place where COVID-19 has actually helped us. It has truly disrupted the convention industry and has made it a little bit better and advantageous to us to be able to negotiate, and gave us some negotiating power, and we took advantage of that. So on the big conferences, we do see that moving quickly, and although we're not 100% ready to say for 2022 it'll be one event, the plans are coming together quickly. The smaller events that we do around the world, I see many of those continuing. In many cases, we will combine where it makes sense to combine. We will clearly be doing events that will serve the needs of the members from both organizations, and where there is specific needs or general needs. So one of the advantages of the merger is now these resources that we used to spend on putting together two separate good-sized conferences can be used to better serve our members around the world with more events, covering more and different topics. The other thing is that we've learned through COVID is that virtual is an option. And although it may not be ideal, and some of us don't like it, many people are responding positively to a virtual type event. And so we will be putting together and continuing with the strategy around virtual events post-COVID-19. And I expect that even our large conferences, there will be some kind of hybrid attendance model where for our members who aren't able to travel to the location, that they'll be able to participate in a meaningful way. And I see that becoming really part of our future going forward. We've learned so much as an industry, and I'm talking about the conferences industry, has learned so much about how to do this well. And the technology has just rapidly advanced in 6 months to make it really a viable option to allow people to attend our events remotely. So that's going to be a core part of what we do and how we accomplish this as well. There is a team looking at conferences, putting together a strategy and a plan for future, just like all of our other topics. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Bob. That's certainly, one of the bigger areas of our associations is bringing people together in order to share information and network. So that's a huge piece of what we do. Amir, just to tee you up here, there's a couple of questions around, let's say, membership chapters and sections that are related. So perhaps we can tackle these together. So what ideas have we got about the legal aspects / structure of the chapters and sections? And then curious about the communication out to the various chapters and sections or areas in NACE's case to solicit feedback or inform them as to what is going on in that integration team.
So as far as I know, in regards to legal, so okay, Bob, you would like to answer, so maybe you will answer.
Thanks, Amir. I'll take that on because that sort of has followed into my area of responsibility. We are working with attorneys to devise a plan for the international chapters. It's a little bit tricky because every country has its own laws, its own regulations, its own requirements, and we have to be able to have a model that allows that to work successfully. I expect what we're seeing right now is it's going to look a lot like really what I think both NACE and SSPC currently do. We're not that different, and that those entities will be independent legal entities from the parent organization, hopefully legally registered in their own country to operate and do what they need to do. And we'll be working with the chapters as that time comes to be able to make that happen for both the organizations. The real challenge is, and the part that the committee's working on, is how are we going to organize the chapters? Will they be, or sections, or whatever we call them? There's a good chance we won't call them either chapters or sections. These entities, will they be organized based on, city boundaries? Will they be organized based on national boundaries, regional? Maybe not on geography at all. Maybe they're going to be organized around your interest. So that's the part that is really got to be answered. And once that's answered, the attorneys will help us devise the legal aspects in the structure. Thanks, Amir.
Regarding to Maurizio's question, so at least from the NACE part, so for example, later this month, we have like a town hall, but like it's an open discussion with our ACC where we have representative from all of our areas and area directors, and each area has 3 representatives. And plus we're also telling people that if they have any ideas, questions, we are the representative. On both sides, I do know, for example, that staff of NACE and SSPC are working together on, for example, is this now the time for new sections, chapters to come to open, and so there is a communication always between the staff and regarding and a lot of sensitivity. And as mentioned, we are already trying to work together. So for NACE, I really know that we are trying to do everything for transparency, and at least from the NACE, from the staff of SSPC, maybe Gary, you can answer this from the SSPC side.
Yes, I could jump in. I know that the current chapters are going to continue operating as previously until the steering committee comes in with a recommendation, because there's a lot of hurdles to get through in joining the chapters and sections together, obviously, like you both mentioned. But I think by the end of the year, we'll have a better idea on how that process is going to play out.
Amir, I would like to add one thing to that. One of the most important things that our leaders can do at a local level is to start to reach out to each other and start to cooperate and work well together. And we're seeing this start to happen in several places really around the world, where the section leader from NACE and the chapter leader from SSPC that serve a common area get together, and they're doing a joint event or having a dinner together or starting that process to get to know each other. And we really encourage that. There's no reason why you couldn't have a joint meeting, invite in a guest speaker, and have it sponsored by both the NACE and the SSPC entity in that local area. In fact, it's a great way to start to give people an opportunity to get to know each other. So we're really are encouraging right away, you can start to cooperate. And it's going to take a cooperative spirit for us to work together. You know, over the years, we haven't always been cooperative, and now we have to be. So it's going to take our leaders from both the NACE and the SSPC side, you know, showing leadership to all of our members that we're now one organization. And one of the best ways to do that is working together for a common event in your area.
Sure. And one more sentence to hear, because basically it's also talking about communications and feedback. So basically what we're doing now is like communication and feedback, and any member is always open to contact us, and we'll fully cooperate. And this is what we're doing also. Okay.
Thanks, Amir. And Bob, Bill, were you getting ready to jump in? Or
I was just going to say, with regard to the communication, I think the latest and greatest information from both organizations and from New Org is available on our website. So all these town halls are recorded. All the releases, press releases, and everything are all posted at the addresses you see on this page here. So I think that's probably the best source of upfront and current information you can get.
I'll add one other comment too, and I know some of the question was around people have volunteered to help, and we really, really appreciate that. And as time comes, we're going to need it. But the reality is, if you have a committee of 100 people, we're not going to be able to move it forward. And, you know, between NACE and SSPC, I don't remember the exact math, but there's 150 sections, and it's just not feasible to have every section represented. It is going to take having a small group lead the effort, get feedback. Feel free to send that feedback if you have it. I'm sure all the team members of these ad hoc committees would value it. In some cases, we are being a little more proactive. We are doing some surveys. Some of that's rolling out over time. If you get a survey, respond to it. But do know, we do want to hear from you, but it really isn't feasible to have really, really large teams. The outcome won't be as good as having small teams that are really listening to what the members have to say.
Thanks, all. A follow-up question, I guess, from the certification piece. Again, when do we think a combined certification scheme is going to kick off? I think what we've heard today, and certainly Kevin and Robert can chime in, but I think we've heard that that is still very much in the framing process, and there isn't a date certain that will take effect. So we need to bring those together in a thoughtful fashion so that we're not creating disruption for the sake of disruption. I guess, Robert?
Tim, you were spot on. We understand that there's a lot involved in trying to bring these two organizations together. And we are committed to have a plan on how that will work. And chances are it may take a couple of years of transition to completely roll that out. But everybody will be recognized for the value of what their certifications currently are.
I mean, one of our
Kevin, did
chief...
you want to?
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
No,
No, I
that's
didn't know if
fine.
Kevin wanted to add something.
No, thank you. Good job. Well done.
I think that reflects one of our chief tenets when we started this process, which was to try and do this integration as fast as we can while minimizing the disruption to our members and creating confusion in the industry. So we want to go at a pace that shows that we're making progress, but not creating it's kind of like a no wake zone if you're in a boat, right? You want to move forward, but you don't want to create a bunch of turbulence as you're doing it. Edward asked a question about the merger and how it's being communicated with specifiers and obstacles. Again, I think that this is, whether it's standards, certification, or accreditation, we recognize that both NACE and SSPC products or programs exist in contracts, exist in regulatory language, exist in procedures and engineering documentation. So we do take that into consideration as we're proposing how we're going to bring these together and what that timeline to bring together looks like. I cannot personally comment on whether specifiers as a group of individuals have been contacted to get their feedback, but we do have, I would say, the right people in place to understand what that, who the key stakeholders are in our processes, and we would look to them to get that feedback to make sure we're not doing harm to the organizations and the members. Now, Sam, that's a very, seems like contractor focused question. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, it's something when you're getting, you know, these specifications out into the industry, you know, contractors are you know, definitely concerned with making sure that we have the right information in place, and you know, making sure that we have everything that's understandable. You know, the tough thing with specifications is when they reference old information, it makes it difficult. They have to be updated, they have to be changed. So making sure that, you know, we have, you know, these things rolled out in a way that comes out into the industry in the right way and over a period of time makes a lot of sense.
Thanks. I would just say Damien gave us some good food for thought, which is how do we consider doing some translation for our global community. I appreciate that, Damien. And that's something that we'll take away in terms of how do we present back out these types of town halls, and it's good information. That brings us nicely to the top of the hour, which is what we committed to at the beginning, was a 60-minute presentation. Looks like the questions that were in the queue, one more just popped up here. I was going to say, it looks like the questions in the queue have been answered, but one snuck in right under the deadline here. So, inspection certification are programs pushing globally. What's the strategy to make owners see the importance of other programs? So that is
Tim,
a long question, I guess, for the time that we have available, but go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'll get you off the hook on this one. So, yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. Both organizations have done this as a regular part of our operations and business anyway. Obviously, there are a lot of asset owners, regulators, people who make decisions around the use of certified inspectors, certified applicators. We're always actively promoting this around the world. And do we reach everybody? No, probably not. But we reach a large number of folks. And does everybody that we reach actually accept what we have to say? No, probably not. But we make a very concerted effort to educate and help them understand why it's important to have qualified, trained people doing the work. I actually think this is one of the huge advantages of SSPC and NACE coming together, because let's be honest, as we go in the past, as two organizations who were seen as in competition with each other, we make it confusing for them. Do they choose NACE? Do they choose SSPC? We're duplicating our effort. I got a real story where we were in visiting a large government entity, and a week later, the people from SSPC came in, and we told them how great we were, and they told them how great they were, and the feedback I got was, we didn't choose either of you because we weren't sure which was best, so we did nothing. That doesn't do anybody any good. We wasted time, money, and resources, and we got nothing. So that's one of the big advantages, I think, of us coming together as one organization, is we now have one message from the industry to these asset owners and regulators about the value of the work that our members do. And we take that confusion out of it. When I personally looked at why I want to be excited about this, that single voice was really key for me, that we now speak as an industry, not as two different separate entities.
Thanks. I think that's a great way to close this session. I'd say thanks to all the panelists that fielded the questions, Sam for delivering the content, great job, and to the folks that joined us online. I hope we found it informative, and the next session will be in looks like 5 weeks time, 5-6 weeks time. So if you have feedback, let us know. Otherwise, we'll look to see you again in a few weeks.